In today's show, answering your questions about Apple Watch Ultra 4, iPhone Air 2, iPhone Fold, next generation Apple TV, and the 20th anniversary iPhone. Don't forget, all this month we are raising money for Movember. QR code down here, or use the link in the description to donate. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. Also, just in case you wondered, I did make videos over the weekend, but as they don't really fit with the channel's theme of tech, I'm going to upload them to my Patreon, but you don't need to pay. We do have a free tier over there, so if you want to just see me and my Barbershop Quartet 404 and how our competition weekend went, head over there, iCaveDave.com/Patreon. Anyway, on to your questions.
Just turn and go. Just turn.
Pokemon Scarlet asks, iCaveAnswers, will the Apple Watch Ultra 4 be a full redesign? I want a bigger screen and a battery, please. What can we expect for it? I think it might be, because we do feel like we are kind of due for an update. Now, what is that update going to look like? I have no idea. I'm going to do a little, fingers crossed, hopes and prayers. Let's say it looks like, that Apple Watch that was rumoured with the flat sides and never appeared all of a sudden because we just got a very slightly weirder Apple Watch that was slightly bigger but not much else. I wonder if it's that, because the Apple Watch Ultra has got the flat screen on the top, that much we have, but then it kind of bulges out at the bottom and I don't know why. So I would hope that it looks like that, because I think making the physical watch on your wrist any bigger than it currently is madness. I know you love massive screens, Pokemon Scarlet. I know that. However, if we're going to make the screen bigger, I don't want the watch underneath it to bulge out. So I don't want the weird bulge on the side that the crown is on for this one. I just don't want that. I want it to be like, here's the screen, it goes straight down at the sides, and then it curves underneath. That would be perfect. Let's do that. Ultra, let's go. What else can we expect from it, though? I do think we're going to get probably better speakers. That would be really good, because currently they do have speakers in there that you're supposed to be able to use as a siren if you get lost in the woods or on a mountain or something. But currently it's just about loud enough to hear from across a room where everyone's being quiet. So I don't feel like that's particularly useful right now, but I think more satellite connectivity is going to be big. I think it seems like Apple is getting towards the point where they're just going to let you make calls over satellite quite readily. I don't think it's going to be a massive deal. I think you're going to be able to navigate over satellites. So even when you've got no signal in terms of downloading the maps, I think that's all going to work anyway. That kind of stuff makes sense for the Ultra. Obviously, the other thing that we are still waiting for happening is the blood glucose monitoring. Now, it is not going to be blood glucose monitoring at the level of a Dexcom or a Libra or one of those dedicated, you stick a needle through your skin and it reads your blood glucose for a couple of weeks. It's not going to be that level. It's going to be more, here's a trend in your blood glucose over time. You might want to go and see your doctor because your glucose has been high for the last week. That's the kind of thing that we're going to be doing. It's going to catch people that are potentially pre-diabetic or that have poor eating habits potentially, and be more kind of health and wellness focused rather than medically focused, I would assume, because I don't see that wearing an Apple Watch is in any way going to give as accurate blood measurements as a sensor that is inside your skin. Even those ones are like 15 minutes delayed compared to doing a literal finger blood. My son is diabetic. We know all of this stuff. We play with this stuff all the time. So that's my thoughts, is blood glucose. I think we will get a trend kind of thing coming, very much in the way that the hypertension works, where it's looking at the opacity of the blood vessels and how much blood's passing through and all that kind of thing over time. It's not going to give you your blood pressure in the same way that a blood pressure cuff will, but it can indicate signs of potential hypertension or potential high or low blood sugar in a kind of trend way, as opposed to a acute, this is your number right now kind of way. That's what I think we're going to get, but that will also come to the regular Apple Watches as well. Those health features do come to all of the watches, apart from the SEs, but I do think redesign with those flat sides would be fantastic. Next up, Pokemon Scarlet asks, iCaveAnswers, are we getting a larger display with the iPhone Air 2? See, I told you he likes a big display. No, we're not. It's already pretty massive. It's already bigger than a regular iPhone. It's already big, it's bigger than a lot of the previous phones that we've had. And it is, it's designed to be a designer kind of, I want this kind of device. It's not designed to be a tablet. It's not designed to be any of those things. And, as we've said, not really sure if iPhone Air 2 was ever planned to happen. Potentially, I think this is more of a test device to make sure that the structural rigidity, the structural structure is strong enough for the folding devices, because they're going to be thin, they're going to have much thinner walls than any of the others, and I think that's probably what we're looking at here, is our precursor to a folding device. I don't think we're going to get a bigger individual screen. I think that is what we are getting. Bigger display on it? No. Pokemon Scarlet 18. As if we knew. iCaveAnswers, are you looking forward to the iPhone Fold? Why is Apple making a 5.5-inch outer display that's so small compared to the Galaxy Fold's screen, both inner and outer? That's a turn-off. I don't think it is. I don't think people are looking for an enormous display on these things. We've seen this because the iPhone 16 Plus sold very little. People didn't want an enormous screen. They wanted a capable phone that fits in their pocket. Now, I think the 5.5-inch display, you have to kind of take into account this is not going to be the same as a 5.5-inch display that was on, say, an iPhone, 6? Was that around that size? I don't know. Editor Dave here. It wasn't the 6 or the SEs. It was the 6 Plus, the 6S Plus, the 7 Plus, the 8 Plus. It's the Plus phones. It's the massive ones that we had from years ago that are 5.5 inches. They had that size, but it's actually going to be a lot taller because the diagonal is where you measure all these things. And if your aspect ratio is different, then the size looks different. For example, the iPad mini. This thing is 8.3-inch display. Is only technically an inch bigger than the Max phones in terms of diagonal distance, but it's a different aspect ratio, which is why it's massive. That's not how they work. So 5.5 inches on a diagonal on a narrow screen is actually going to give you quite a lot of screen real estate, but also they're not designed to be used with the display closed. They're designed to be opened, which is my issue with them. I don't want to be there opening and closing one all the time. Am I excited for it? Not really. Am I excited to see what Apple does with it? Yes. I don't think I'll buy one because, honestly, folding phones just don't appeal to me at all. However, I am excited to see what Apple is doing with it. I'm excited to see how Apple makes it useful, how Apple makes it worthwhile to go for this folding device that is going to be more expensive. Let's not beat around the bush. Apple is not the cheapest phone manufacturer. It's also not the most expensive at this point. Samsung, you've won that one. However, I just don't understand why people want one. I don't get it. I've used them. I've touched them. I've played with them. I don't like the fold in the middle of the screen. If Apple can fix that, great. Still doesn't make it more useful. It just makes it slightly less annoying in one particular way. However, yeah, I want to see what they do, and I hope they do something amazing that makes me want it. But at the moment, I don't care. Pokemon Scarlet. iCaveAnswers, I'm still waiting for the Apple Home Theater, like full surround system with subwoofers and bars. The HomePods suck for a true surround sound. Yes, but also I think anything that's going to be wireless is always going to have some delay to it, and I don't think that's really the way that Apple is going. I think for a while we were all convinced Apple was going to make this Apple TV box that was actually going to contain like a sound bar that sat under your TV, and that would be a good place to house a little camera as well. Now, the latest versions of Apple tvOS, tvOS 26, does have the option for a dedicated continuity camera. So if you've got an old iPhone that you want to mount by your TV to use it for FaceTime calls, you can do that. It's a great system. It's a very clever use of older technology, and the cameras that are on older iPhones that you might not be using day to day anymore are probably still far, far better than pretty much any webcam you can buy on the market and anything that Apple could put into an Apple TV for a reasonable cost. All of that being said, I don't see Apple creating surround sound systems with wires that you run around your rooms. All that sort of stuff is very much like custom build. This is the kind of stuff that enthusiasts do. What HomePods do is give you a great sound, especially if you use a pair in stereo. They scan your room, they give you that magical wireless automatic setup. Do they give you true surround sound? No. Do they give you a very good overall sound that can be used for music, for TV, for movies? Yes, pretty good. Now, for games, this is the one thing where they actually do kind of suck a bit, because you do have that lag. What Apple TV and other stuff can do when you're watching movies is that it just kind of holds back on the picture until you get to where the sound will catch up, so it kind of adjusts itself automatically. What you can't do with games, because you are doing inputs directly that you need to react quickly without latency, that's where these things fall down. But I don't think Apple needs to be the one to solve that problem. Like, most people in their lounge will already have decent speakers attached to their TV if they care about the level of sound from their TV. Other people will use Bluetooth headphones. Other people will use wired headphones. Other people will want to use a whole range of other things. Apple doesn't need to solve every single problem. That one is probably one best left for audio companies. Pokemon Scala, iCaveAnswers give us all the juicy details about the 20th anniversary iPhone. I've skipped the 17 series and will skip the 18 as well for it, and currently using the 13 Pro Max, and it's a beast. Will it get a full redesign? What do we know about screen sizes? And do we finally get the iPhone Ultra? I don't think the iPhone Ultra is a name they're going to go with anymore, if I'm entirely honest. I think what the Ultra was going to be is potentially what the Air has become. What I would say, though, is that this 20th anniversary iPhone does look like it's going to have some serious changes. Now, a couple of the things that have been mentioned, and these are probably a whole video of their own, which I think we'll probably do to just kind of deep dive into it. It looks like we're not going to have physical buttons. It looks like we're going to have pressure-sensitive taptic engine buttons. The reason for that is they don't want to be cutting into what is essentially going to be glass that wraps around all sides of the phone. So the whole front surface is going to be glass, and it's going to be curved on every side, and the screen is going to essentially wrap to about halfway on every side. So it's going to feel more like an Apple Watch. It's going to be that kind of curved glass edge. Apple's been doing this on the Apple Watch for a long time. However, they've also now put into the current iPhones, and you may well have noticed this, it was a massive, massive talking point at the last iPhone event. Apple has put in this new Ceramic Shield 2 glass on the front and the back, and by all accounts, it's basically indestructible. Not indestructible, glass is still glass, but look at what happened when Jerry Rig Everything got his hands on the new iPhone Pros, start trying to scratch them, and was just blown away by the fact that he could not. The iPhone Air, incredibly, incredibly strong, incredibly resilient, which ties in with what we will potentially see in the Fold, because we don't want screens that are going to scratch. Go to your local Apple store and look at the screens on all those iPhones that are unprotected, that are being handled by people on a daily basis. They are flawless. I was actually checking for this when I popped into my local Apple store the other week, and my God, these things look brand new. There is not a mark on the things. Obviously, they did have a slight issue where those the back glass on the Pros, for example, was getting some what looked like chips. It wasn't that. It was actually the glass on it is so hard that it was eroding the aluminium on the MagSafe stands that it was sitting on. So they've had to put a rubber cover over the MagSafe stands so that the aluminium isn't deposited onto the back glass, because it doesn't make sense to say, oh, it's chipped away the paint and you can see the metal. No, because there's not metal under it, it's glass. That's how durable this Ceramic Shield 2 is. And that is why Apple is using that this year and potentially sort of testing it to see how it works in the long term, because this next Apple iPhone 20th anniversary, iPhone XX, whatever they're going to call it, is going to have just pure glass all the way around. And from the looks of things, I don't know exactly how they're going to do speakers, exactly how they're going to do microphones, that kind of thing. It does look like the Face ID sensor will be going under the screen, so we'll just have the punch out for the camera itself, which means potentially a smaller dynamic island on the top. So if that's something that that pleases you, amazing, there we go. I think the other thing they might be doing in terms of the speakers is what we've heard is going to be an experiment with the next iPad mini, which is going to get OLED displays for the first time, possibly not tandem OLEDs, the same as the iPads Pro. However, as bright as probably your iPhone is, and entirely waterproof for the first time. I say waterproof, as water resistant as a thing can be, because they're not going to have speaker cutouts. They're going to use the display itself to vibrate as a speaker. That's interesting. Don't know how good that's going to sound. That's probably another reason that Apple are experimenting with it on a lower volume product like the iPad mini, which is obviously, as everyone knows, the perfect size of iPad. This is the one to get. So these are the things that Apple is doing, and these are the biggest clues that we have towards what this next generation of iPhone is going to be. We've had of course the aluminium body has come back. Whether that's going to stay or whether they're going to go to a titanium frame with an aluminium over the top or vapor chambers going into it, whatever they're going to do, we don't know. But it's probably going to have a 2nm chip instead of a 3nm chip. It's probably going to have this full glass enclosure, which is going to be fantastic. And honestly, I can't wait to see it because it sounds like the future. Now, you may have seen some renders of it looking entirely see-through, entirely transparent. No, that's not a thing that is possible because batteries and electronics have to be somewhere, and B, it's not something you want. Everyone sees these renders of entirely clear things, but then you're going to be reading over your hand, and as much as that's going to look great in an advert, you're going to get really bored of that really quickly. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the Patreons, as always. Thank you to everyone who has donated for my Movember. This is why I am pretty much beardless at this point. This is about a week's worth of growth, so there is a post on my community page where you can design my new beard. Please get over there, send me your images, be gentle on Instagram, and I want to see what you come up with. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next one.